Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Making Action Happen, the show that we do for our Action 22 members around the state of Colorado and around the country and now around the world. I'm Sarah Blackhurst.
And I'm Brian McCain.
And we've got a really great show for you today. We are sitting at the Walking Y Ranch in Trinidad, Colorado with County Commissioner Tony Haas. And we have a lot of great stuff. But before we get to him, we've also got one of our really wonderful colleagues, Matt Albright, who runs the Center for American Values. And the Center for American Values is one of this really interesting and unique nonprofits in Pueblo County. And they do some amazing stuff. And Matt has been a longtime colleague of mine from way before, for more years than I'm going to say. But Matt is working on a really, really important project that he's going to talk about a little bit. But Matt, welcome to the show. And before you get into the project you're working on, will you tell us a little bit about the Center for American Values?
Of course I will, Sarah. First, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And yes, we do go way back, but it's amazing to see you continue to make a difference throughout Southern Colorado. And I believe our mission here at the Center for American Values is doing the same thing. Those of you that aren't familiar with the center, we are a 501c3 public charity. Nothing political about it. Sometimes people hear the name. We don't have a political angle on what we do. In short, we recognize service and sacrifice. And the reason we do it is in the hopes that the next generation will do the same. We focus our mission in three areas. First is community engagement and inspiration. Behind me, you may see, if you can see the Zoom, but if you can't, the center itself hosts the Portraits of Valor. It's 160 portraits of the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients that were living 1999 to today. The reason that's significant is, one, there's only two places this unique collection is held. One, here on the Pueblo Riverwalk, and two is in the Pentagon. This is also the Medal of Honor Gallery. We have all kinds of different historic items associated with that Congressional Medal of Honor. And our co-founder, Drew Dix, many of you from Pueblo County in Southern Colorado know that name. He is integral in our mission, but we also aren't focused on only honoring the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients. We really talk about not just the recipients, but the meaning of the medal, which is sacrificing something selfless in order for the better good. So we recognize and honor folks from all different walks of life for their amazing contributions to this community, to Colorado, and to the nation. We also have a focus in character and leadership development. We host numerous groups, not just kids, field trips and whatnot. With kids, it's about 7,500 to 10,000 youth a year participate in our programs, civics education, character and leadership development, and everything in between. We also do a lot of programs for adults. We all know that we need some training now and then if you want to stay on top of it. And the civics and character and leadership development, we believe, should continue into adulthood. So we've hosted Action 22. We've hosted countless groups. Even this year with the reopening in our community, we're getting moving again and seeing a lot of different groups, from Colorado Ag Leadership Development to the Postal Carrier Union, and just it's great to see folks back out again. So anybody listening, watching, the unique venue is available. Nothing political. Something like Action 22 is different, but nothing. No political platforms or soapboxes. But we love getting groups and talking about the issues of Colorado. And then the one I'm talking about today, the third focus area, is first responder and veteran support. We know, I'm talking to Southern Colorados here, we know that this is an issue that is near and dear to many of us. I often point out a story of the big food distribution we do, which covers 9 Southern Colorado counties, not what I'm talking about at length today, but I remember talking to the VSO in Conejos County, and he pointed out that they don't have things like that down there. This is very rare to have the opportunity to have a food distribution, be able to help the veterans. They're driving as far as Denver to receive aid for their veterans. So we love being a bit of a hub here in Southern Colorado, bringing the different veterans group together and making a difference. And that is one thing we're doing here, the program I get to talk about today. This is a national program that I'm about to talk about, but it is still Colorado-centric, Colorado focused, because we never forget that our home is the home of heroes. So a week from today, on Thursday, May 27th at 3 p.m., the center will be facilitating a Congressional Medal of Honor virtual program. It's entitled Breaking the Wall of Silence. Congressional Medal of Honor recipients speaking to the active duty and veteran suicide issue. I hate to say veteran suicide epidemic because we know this is an American epidemic. It's ravaging our rural communities and our farms. It's ravaging teenage in high schools, but we're seeing this very deep and it's a tragedy in the veterans community, as we all know. So what this program intends to do is bring a voice to the voiceless. We feel, this unique connection with the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients really gives us an opportunity. The Congressional Medal of Honor is something that transcends rank, transcends branch. It really just can open up a conversation. It's not a, hey, I have 4 stars on my shoulder, listen to me type of thing, or hey, I'm a Navy, I'm Army, I'm Marine. It really just can bring everything to a common level, much like our friends at Action 22 do when we're talking about Colorado issues. And so having these Congressional Medal of Honor recipients speak to breaking the stigma of seeking help, breaking the stigma of talking openly about active duty veteran suicide. That's something that I think the outside world loves to do, say, oh, 22 a day and it's a tragedy, but we don't talk about how we identify the warning signs in our fellow friends, neighbors, folks we see at the restaurant or whoever in your community that may be struggling, identifying those signs and knowing that we could be the one responsible to making a difference. It's the little things, the little, hey, how you doing? I know you're having some problems, and really reaching out and get out of this mindset of, oh, they're fine, tough it up type of mentality. And as I said, having these recipients speak to this issue, talk about their own lived experience, talk about their own struggles, and giving their perspective. I mean, we brought a diverse group in. We have 2 from the War on Terror, Flo Broberg and Kyle White, also Alan Lynch, a Vietnam Medal of Honor recipient. And it's just going to bring different views, and it's what's needed. Nobody has the answer. If anybody had the answer to this, we wouldn't be talking about it. This wouldn't be such an issue. So to that point, again, May 27th at 3 p.m., it's a YouTube live broadcast. So you can come in and watch it from anywhere in Colorado, and we will also make it available. So you say 3 p.m., what the heck? I can't make it then. Well, we're going to make that available throughout the upcoming months, so people can come back and reference this. And the hope is this won't be the only one, and we'll be able to do this to address issues in other communities as well, and other high risk areas.
You brought up the 22 a day, which everybody hears and sees on social media. But we were at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon the other day, and this was a topic they brought up, not particularly veterans or active duty, but across the board. And surprisingly, and I did not realize this other than passing conversation, actually, I think with you, Colorado has a higher rate of suicide than the national average, correct?
Yes, it's staggering. Colorado in general has a higher rate, and within the veteran community, we are about equal with Arizona for the highest active duty veteran suicide rate in the nation. I don't think that's something I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that, and I've been working with veterans for going on a decade now. And it was something that was news to me when I really got embedded in this and involved with this about 2 years ago. I'm going to look at my sheet here because I never want to be misquoted, but some of the Colorado stats between 2004 and 2019, Colorado lost 3,044 active duty and veterans to suicide in just that period. 217 service members died by suicide in 2019 alone. In El Paso County, obviously, those of us around here know that El Paso County is a huge military community with Fort Carson and Peterson. They're losing, on average, 1 veteran a day to suicide. Also, kind of gave a little bit of perspective. The national average for active duty veteran suicide rate is 32 per 100,000. In Colorado, it's 42 per 100,000. And obviously, with everything going on, it's not getting better. Like I said, I'm not coming. We don't believe this particular program is the magic pill. But Brian, I know you really worked hard and with veterans, and that's one of your passions. I know everybody at the table probably, but it's getting folks to talk about it. We think that's a first step. If we can break that stigma of reaching out for help, break that stigma of saying, I'm fine. No, don't worry about me. I'm fine. or he's fine, or she's fine, and really letting our friends and neighbors kind of deal with it themselves instead of reaching out and saying, hey, are you okay? And sometimes that's really difficult to ask someone, hey, how are you doing? And when they say, I'm good, no, seriously, how you doing? Sometimes just that little bit may be the thing that gets them out of the funk, gets them to communicate. And then we can, encourage them that, hey, no, you're really important to me. It wouldn't be the same without you, and plant that seed for them to go further on and get some help. We're also working on putting together a Southern Colorado Veteran Suicide Prevention Coalition. Perhaps I won't get deep into that right now, but if there's VSOs and veterans that are paying attention to this broadcast, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk about that and make this a regional thing, not just in Pueblo.
Well, we're going to help you to try to make that a regional thing. I know that it's important. We have a lot of, we talk about ag producers having the suicide issues as well. And then you're going to find a lot of ag producers are veterans. And so it's a double whammy on that one. And so I have wondered myself how many, like which column do those fall into if it's a veteran and they're an ag producer. And so I know those are the numbers there, but I've wondered often if the numbers aren't even higher than that if you were to count them in both places. So that's going to be a really big deal. Matt, you talked just for a second about this discussion that you're going to have on the 27th of May. So that's next week. We'll
Yes.
put the information out for you. But during that discussion, is that just for veterans, or is it something that if you have a veteran in your life, or if you have a friend that you could listen in, it's something that you're worried about that would give you maybe some skills, or is this just strictly for veterans?
Oh, thank you for asking, Sarah. No, this is for everybody. Anybody, you don't even have to have a veteran in your life. Kind of how we're framing it or see this, and as we've been working with the recipients, is they're just having a candid conversation. None of these guys on there have their doctorate in mental health. They're not coming in thinking, we know the stats, but they're not going to be, it's not going to be a big stat heavy thing. It's going to be a conversation. So our first focus obviously is for veterans, active duty, and what to see that and say, hey, if these guys can talk about it. But I believe this is also going to be important for healthcare professionals and the average American to be able to kind of say, oh, this is where they're coming from. This is where Uncle Bill is coming from. This is where my neighbor, this is where, and just create a better understanding for the average civilian to relate, if you would, to the veterans and the struggles they face when it comes to communicating about their struggles and suicide prevention. So once again, great answer or great question, Sarah, because this is for anyone who wants to get a deeper knowledge of this issue.
Matt, we're going to have you come back on the show a little bit further down the road when you've got this developed. And I know this isn't going to be a one and done discussion for you, and I know as you develop stuff for Southern Colorado and what that looks like, we'll have you on. You're going to send me the information so that we can send those invites out. And Brian's going to talk with his VSO friends and colleagues, and that we'll get that out for you as much as we can. And then it'll be on demand after that, I assume. So
on demand after that. So yeah, so obviously we realize not everybody's going to be able to make it there 3 o'clock on a Thursday, but we wanted to put it before Memorial Day because there is sadly a spike during Memorial Day weekend. I think people are thinking about folks they lost. But also, it's not just the combat veterans that lost somebody. Many of our veterans who weren't even in combat are struggling, and we're seeing high rates there. Best way to follow it, please, and thank you for sending out the information, but an easy way, if you're just listening to this, like the Center for American Values on Facebook or Twitter. We're going to be flooding that with the link. Again, it's a YouTube live broadcast. So we're going to have the guys, they're all across the nation and coming in just similar to this. And then we're going to push that out on YouTube live for the live one, and then, button it up and then re-release it right after Memorial Day weekend. So anybody can like, share, view, and help get this program out and about.
So once again, if you're going to try to get there and you want the easy button, is just go to YouTube and search Center for American Values, and you'll be able to find it, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And of course, that Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff that's everybody's doing now. So
great. Matt, thank you so much for being on. And did you see how I didn't call you Maddie in front of everybody?
No, thank you
Until
for
just
not calling me
then.
Maddie in front of everybody. That's the other. Hey.
All right.
Thank you so much. You know, I deeply respect what you do with Action 22, both of you. It was nice to meet you, Commissioner, and thank you for the time. Look forward to coming back and once again speaking with you.
And before you jump off, I'm going to do one more plug for the Center for American Values. If you're in Pueblo at any time and you're walking around the Riverwalk, do yourself a huge favor and walk into the Center for American Values. It almost feels like sacred ground when you stop and look around at all these beautiful pictures, the quotes that go with them. Give yourself that gift. And especially I go down to the center when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling just like I need some inspiration to continue to do this hard work that we all are working on. That is the place to go. It's almost like going to church. So just do yourself a favor and go down and visit and find Maddie when you're down there.
Yeah, but don't call me Maddie when you're down here. 10 to 4, 7 days a week. To tour the Melavana Gallery, it's absolutely free. And as Sarah said, it is nearly impossible to feel sorry for yourself when you're hearing the stories of these amazing Americans. Thank you again for the time.
And it's also important to put out, again, you are a nonprofit 501c3. So you live off of donations. So those are important too.
Yes,
we do. And we believe our mission is definitely worth it. We are a program focused 501c3 nonprofit as well. As you see,
yes.
that we really are proud that the rubber meets the road, and
Yep.
we do well with the philanthropy that comes our way.
Very good. Thanks, Matt. That was Matt Albright with the Center for American Values. Look for if you're Action 22 members involved with Action 22, we'll send you a link to the programs that are coming up at the Center for American Values, including this really important discussion on suicide that's coming up. So thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
So we've got Commissioner Tony Haas with us. We are in this beautiful ranch home on the top of a bluff. We're going to send pictures out and a little bit of video out with this a little bit later. But I wanted to welcome you. You are one of the more, so if you're thinking about what a Colorado County Commissioner looks like, it's Tony Haas. He former bull rider, rancher, he's done all of it. He's still an ag producer. And you were made Los Animas County Commissioner how long ago now?
So a year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago.
Yes.
Okay. So you've got a whole lot of stuff. So it was right before the pandemic hit.
It was baptism by fire, let me tell you.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. We have lots of things to talk about, especially with everything that's going on. So let's first talk about what you did to sort of get through the pandemic as a county commissioner. And then I want to talk about how the pandemic affected you as an ag producer. You're a cattle rancher.
Right. Yeah. So the county commission, we follow the direction of our health director. And we have an advisory position only on our health board. And that it was tough to navigate through that in the beginning, because we felt like we needed a bigger voice at the table. And but we followed protocol and we all masked up. It's been an inconvenience for everybody. You know that, everybody does. And we muddled through it the best we can. And seems like every week there's a new protocol that we have to follow. And sometimes the commissioners were the last to hear that there was that protocol, but we're muddling through it. And I really got to commend our health department. They've done a fantastic job. They've been under ridicule.
I was going to just say they haven't caught any heat during this. Everybody was really just very forgiving, and
especially this time of year with graduations and state playoff games and that sort of thing. And if an individual ended up with COVID on the team, they'd quarantine the team, and our phones were ringing off the hook.
Oh,
and
I'm sure.
Trying to be safe, trying to keep people healthy. I get it. But it was tough. It was tough. This pandemic has been a real eye-opening experience for the county and everybody that's involved. It's, I won't go any further. Give me another question.
Let's ask this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how sick of Zoom meetings are you?
Oh, yeah, let's make it a 9.5.
All right.
Yeah, this was almost another Zoom, but I'm glad that I'm here today, and thank you for having me, Brian and Sarah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thanks for
I'm-
letting us be at your beautiful home at this beautiful ranch. And it's so green right now with all of the rain.
I'm so proud and honored to be a part of Action 22 and what this organization does
Well,
too.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
By the way, if you watch Action 22, I failed to mention that Tony's also not only a county commissioner, but he's also on the Action 22 board of directors. And it's been an important piece on that, both from the perspective of being a county commissioner, but also with as an ag producer, because there has been a lot going on with ag producers and with a whole lot of what really feels like a war on ag right now in Colorado.
I think it's a full-out assault on ag, and I want to answer the question: how did the pandemic affect ag producers? In the beginning, when that first happened, we have a lot of workers that are in those beef plants, and what ended up happening was some of those beef plant workers got sick, and when they got sick with it, they had to quarantine the beef plant. Now that's a trickle-down effect because our major feedlots, they had big beef cattle that were ready to be slaughtered, and they couldn't get them into the plant. So in retrospect, what they had to do is they had to euthanize a lot of those cattle because they couldn't afford to feed them any longer. And if you do hold a cow or a steer, and this is going to get into our pause,
Right.
but if you do hold a steer for that long and you're holding him on feed, the optimum time to have a butcher calf butchered is when they're right at the top of their peak of producing the marble that's in the meat.
Okay.
And that's at about 1,250 pounds to 1,400 pounds, depending on the breed of the animal. If you try to hold them longer than that, you're holding them on a ration or even back them off, that fat turns to gristle in the meat. And it's just, the quality of your meat diminishes,
Yeah.
substantially.
And so the price goes down.
And it was tough on producers because then the trickle down effect, I'm a cow calf producer, the trickle down effect to us was we take our 650 pound yearling steers or calves into the sale barn. There wasn't a demand for them because there was nowhere to fit them. Because if they're holding them at the packing house and at the feedlot, you're going to have to hold them at the ranch too. So a lot of us had to retain ownership, and that was a huge burden, putting about another $200 per head to hold them until those plants open back up.
Well, and not only that, it was the middle of a drought. So,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
buying hay at that point if you were going to keep them. Is it true? I read somewhere that there's only 12 meat packing houses for beef in the US.
I'm not sure about
How
that.
many are in Colorado?
I don't know that either.
Oh,
I know they're booked out 2 years in advance. Now you gotta, if you want to get a beef in to have it slaughtered now, it's a 2-year long wait to get in there. So your appointments.
And is that from backing up from the pandemic?
Part of it is because now everybody understands that their food supply, their meat supply is, subject to a pandemic also.
yeah.
So what they've got to do is they've got to basically back it up and hold it over. And it's been tough.
That's totally stressful.
So basically, any decision that you're making right now, you have to plan 2 years in advance.
Right.
And then you have what we're going to talk about, legislation coming down that could change a year from now. And in that system where you're planning 2 years out, similar to the potato farmers, they plan 3 years out.
Yeah.
And as something changes, and I know with everybody, money's tight right now, and we're on a budget and you have to make the bottom line. So if this big wrench comes in, i.e. the PAWS Act or this other ag bill, that can really hurt you detrimentally, financially and operational wise, correct?
Correct. And there's not a big profit margin for ranchers, and especially coming out of a drought and a pandemic all at the same time. Many of us are actually going to go into the negative for this year. We won't have a profit. We're going to have to make up that next year. And things are looking good out here, as you guys seen. We got green grass and Lord blessed us with the moisture that we needed, and we're all happy about that. But it's going to take us a while to dig out of this hole. And then with these two other the ballot initiative, PAWS, and also with the labor bill, and there was multiple things, the meat out day, and maybe we made too much of it. I don't know, but it rallied the troops. People were ranch owners, cattle producers. They wanted to let everybody know that, hey, we're still here. We have a premier product that we can offer to our consumers. And then we had legislation that passed that would allow us to sell directly off the ranch. And that was
a
huge.
big deal. That was a really big deal.
And people know that and once they've tried it right there from the ranch, they see the choice product that they're gonna, and I have a little business that I run, that I sell beef on the side, and it's tripled since
then.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's good. Is that going to be, how much help is that going to be to making up the deficit that you had from last year?
It's a small help.
It's a small help.
Yep. Because normally cattle ranchers, they get paid once a year, maybe twice a year when they go in the spring and the fall with whatever they have. And this way you can make a little more throughout the year. So about every month or two, or depending how big an operation you have, every 2 weeks.
It helps a little bit.
Yeah.
It helps a little bit. Before we go to break, I want to ask you really quick. If somebody wanted to buy cattle right off the ranch, do they have to send it? I know this is a dumb question, but do they have to send it someplace to get it processed, or can they get it processed from you, or how would one go about doing that?
When I do it, I do quarter halves and wholes.
Okay.
And I take mine to a USDA inspected processor. That way everything is legit on board, and they buy the product when it reaches the packing house, and they tell them how they want it cut, and
Oh, nice.
works out really well. And at the particular place that I use, they do a shrink wrap, and so there's no freezer burn.
Oh, nice.
And every rancher offers a little incentive. Mine is I tenderize the rounds and I bone it out. So the individual that's buying beef from me doesn't have to pay for the bone weight.
Oh,
So I price it by the pound, and
nice.
it works out really well. Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good. When we come back, we're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan and what you're working on that. And then we're going to dive in a lot more on the assault on ag that you just described. So
Okay.
Stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back with Commissioner Tony Haas. Hi, welcome back to Making Action Happen. We're sitting here on the Walking Y Ranch with Los Animas County Commissioner Tony Haas and beef producer. While we were on the break, we were talking a little bit about what Matt Albright was saying about the suicide and the concerns. And I know that there's a lot of effort that has been made on behalf of, through Colorado Farm Bureau, Senator Gardner, to try to help alleviate this. But give us just a little bit of perspective on why that's happening in the ag community.
When you're coming out of a drought and you've got those increased prices, a lot of these ranches are 5 generations deep. And I know this from personal experience, friends that have committed suicide because the other family members sometimes will lay guilt on that individual, telling him that, grandpa and grandma made it through the 30s, the dirty 30s. How come you can't make it through this? Well, back then, $1 was all your dollar. And today, 40 cents of that dollar is your dollar. Everything's higher. And those individuals coming out of a drought, and they've had increased everything that we have. We get a payday once a year, and everything we have, usually most of us operate for an entire year on borrowed money. And then when we sell our crop, we pay that off and we start all over again. That's the nature of the beast. But if you get to a point to where you've lost $300-400 a head that year, and you don't have any reserve to back that up, and then you have family members telling you, hey, listen, you know, how come you can't make it work? And they get to feel in that guilt. And then the prices go down. Like right now, we're seeing a decline in cattle prices. And all of that just compounds on them. And I kind of understand where they're going. Maybe I'm made different, but always seem to figure out a way to get out of it. If that means I got to go, you know, mop the floors at the high school, I'll do that, whatever it takes to make it work. But some people don't have that ability to do that.
Well, and if there's anything that's added on, if there's an illness or and it might be a little thing, but compacted on top of other, and so I think it's really important that we sort of, you know, it's how important it is to be aware of your surroundings, be as aware of the people that surround you on issues like this, especially during these times.
You have to be vigilant, and you gotta, when you know that, and ranchers and farmers are all, they're good people. I mean, if they know somebody's suffering that way,
Absolutely.
whatever we can do to help, we'll help.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need help branding your calves, or you need another 5 ton of hay to make it to the end of the season, they'll help
Somebody's
each
going to
other.
help you figure it out. Yeah.
And yeah, but some ranchers are real proud. I know I am. I don't like to ask for help. I can do it myself. I mean,
Right.
that's the attitude we have. And it's tough to ask people for help.
No, it absolutely is. But I think help's out there, and let's just kind of keep going on what we're doing. Everybody, and give yourself and everybody else a break. Everybody's doing the best they can, and so are you. So think about that. Okay, so before we get into some more of the ag stuff, let's talk a little bit about what's coming down. So first there was the CARES Act, and it was a big rush, and there was a lot of ambiguity, and I think there was a lot of money maybe left on the table and just a lot of nervousness. Now we have a whole new ball game with the American Rescue Plan. And so there's some really great opportunities here. So from the perspective sitting in the county commissioner seat, and we're going to be having a lot of these discussions, but sitting in the county commissioner seat, what's that looking like for you? What are you doing to start to have those conversations and figure out what the priorities are and so forth?
In a small rural county like Los Animas County, where we depend on grants and that kind of stuff to stay afloat, with the median, you know, our at 28,000, there's not a lot of
the median what is 28,000?
The median income.
Individual income is 28,000. So what's
Yeah.
the median household income in Los Animas County?
I don't know what.
So it's got to
is.
be twice that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Like a little bit. 28,000 is the median income in Los Animas County. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, where were we at now?
I'm sorry. What you're doing with the county?
The
on
priorities.
So what we
priorities.
did, we did apply for that, and we found out that we're going to be awarded that money. And after I talked to you this morning, I did some checking out. What we're going to do is have a work session with all of our electeds there at the county. And we're going to sit down around a table and throw some ideas where that money would best be spent. Me personally, I think it needs to be spent on infrastructure.
Yeah.
We have deteriorating buildings, and DOLA monies are short too. I sit on the EIF board.
Right.
And I know that DOLA monies are short. So whenever we can, you know, pick up the slack and do it ourselves, we're going to do that. And we're right in the process of renovating the courthouse. We've got the fairgrounds that we're trying to renovate and get back to its pristine standards that it used to be. Right now, it's been run down and needs a lot of loving touch to get it back to where it needs to be.
So for you, infrastructure looks like just updating or catching up on county facilities or county buildings.
Yep.
that have it,
I
that
think that would be
been
probably the
neglected.
priority in my book.
Yeah,
Then there would be broadband. I mean, we all have the wish list, housing affordability. We're looking at something like that. Our solar, wind, we've got a solar farm coming in, another one. We're looking at wind generation.
Right.
And of course, the main thing though, I think before we ever get there is we need to make sure that our infrastructure can hold this county together when we see the influx of people that's going to come to this city and county because of our new Fisher Peak State Park.
yeah.
We're going to have to be able to absolve all of that that's coming with, the visitors.
What's your housing stock like here?
And there isn't much. And as soon as a house goes on the market, it's incredible. It'll be gone in 3 days
Yeah,
and selling it for 3 times what they're asking. I mean, we could almost have a bidding war,
on the
here in
housing.
Los Animas County.
And it's interesting because we're seeing that across the board from Pueblo. It's less than 24 hours. That's how long houses are
Yes.
on the market, and it's all cash.
Yep.
And they're not from there.
No,
And then that slowly trickles out to the communities. Like we were in Alamosa, and there's a 9-month waiting list to build a new house there because so many people are coming in. And I saw this years ago that was going to happen, and I think that COVID just expedited it. And what's happening in the bigger cities goes down to Pueblo, and now it's just moving out,
yep.
and it's a problem.
I foresee that happening right here in Los Animas County. And a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I was doing my candidate speech at that candidates night, I told everybody we're in a unique position. The wheels of progress are rolling down the Front Range, and we're in a unique position to where we can mold and shape this county how we want it before, the urban sprawl dictates how we do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got to commend everybody that's working, the city officials and everybody. They're all trying to work toward that end. And
I think the thing with the rescue plan that I've really, and I mean, the guidelines just came out last week, so that's why we are starting to have these conversations. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about is this is going to be a very bottom-up approach to funding. So you're going to get money. You're guaranteed to get money. As with the CARES Act, there was a pass-through. It had to filter, and somebody else was deciding. You're going to get some money for sure. Because it's 50,000, it's less than 50,000 for Trinidad, or for municipalities in Los Animas County. They're going to have to do some more work to go after those funds. But you can sit down and match, or you guys can work on projects together and do a lot of things. And then you can even have a project that everybody sort of contributes to, and then the state can contribute and the Fed can contribute to, which is amazing. That being said, I have found often that rural counties don't always work very closely with the municipalities in their county. Sometimes there's some friction, and Los Animas County is no exception to that. So, and Mayor Rico's on the Action 22 board. You're on the Action 22 board. How are you bridging that gap?
we made a promise to each other when I was running for commissioner that we would try to reach across the aisle, basically, and work together. And we've done fairly well. It's tough when you got two governing parties that are working toward the same end, competing for the same monies, and it's tough at times, but in the end, we're all Los Animas County.
Right.
And I like to talk about Team Los Animas County.
Yeah.
When we have a big project like GoCo awarded us I forget the name of the gym equipment that we put out at the fairgrounds, but it was a community effort and everybody got involved. All the commissioners and Mayor Rico were there, and a lot of city people and different, our fire department, our police department, mixing concrete and putting a playground up for the kids. And that's what it's about.
Right.
I mean, working together to come to a common goal to see it to fruition. And another thing that's really good about this American Rescue Act, where it's different from the CARES Act, in my opinion. The CARES Act, everything was a rushed deal. It had to be
Right.
done, and the sunset was much shorter time period. A lot of different criteria that you had to follow and fit into. Whereas this American Rescue Act, it doesn't sunset until 2026. And you can think about the programs that you really need to implement,
Yes.
and you can see them all the way to fruition.
Yes.
And this is, I think it's going to work a lot better, especially for smaller counties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time, actually.
Yeah.
It's something to look forward to.
And going in the opposite direction of not really working together, let's get into the PAWS Act, or the PAWS Act ballot initiative that we've talked about many times
Oh
on this
my
show.
gosh, yes.
So are you for it? Or are you against it?
Well, you know me being a rancher, I'm going to be against it. You know, in the years past, it's always been an assault on gas and oil. It seemed like that
Yeah.
was their target. And I don't understand why the assault is happening on ag when we do a good thing. We produce food, we feed ourselves. This nation can sustain itself with the food products that it produces. I'm really scared that if they keep pushing this kind of legislation forward, that it'll put us all out of business. If we have to depend on foreign countries for our food, that'll be the death of this nation. I think that we need to capitalize on the fact that we make the premier product right here in
Yeah.
the US and stick to that.
And other countries around the world depend on us for their food as well.
Exactly.
You know?
Our grains, everything.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about beef. I'm talking about pork and chicken and everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's about sustainability.
So for anybody who's just now catching up, and especially I want to, from your perspective and in your words, tell everybody what the PAWS or ballot 16 measure, it's a ballot measure, but tell them what it is about.
So the PAWS initiative 16, it basically eliminates animal husbandry. So for a lot of us, if you artificial inseminate, you can't touch any reproductive organ on the animal. And for a rancher, for the safety of our animals, many times what we'll do, and this is hogs, sheep, everything, is we'll artificial inseminate our young cattle so that the big heavy bull doesn't break them down and fracture hips and legs and that sort of thing.
Right.
And we can go in and select the semen of that particular bull that was low birth weight. So like -4 on his birth weight means that he's much smaller than your herd bull that you use, who is a +4 on his birth weight. So there might be 40 to 50 pounds difference in the calf size. And we do that to make it less stressful to the animal. So that involves going in and checking to see if that heifer is bred, preg checking. You wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to preg check. You wouldn't be able to assist that heifer. Many heifers have trouble during the first birth and cycle. And you wouldn't be able to even go in there and assist that heifer. You wouldn't be able to castrate or neuter your dogs or cats.
Yeah.
For the people that live in the cities, this isn't just an ag, approach. That's also going to be for your dogs and your cats.
Yeah.
It reaches across a lot of
everybody.
Yes.
And then on top of that, when you get past that part of it, then what about slaughtering a cow for food?
We just talked a little bit about that, and I was telling you about holding an animal. So if you can't castrate an animal, Harry Vold has a bucking bulls out on his ranch, and they have a pasture and they're equipped to handle bucking bulls. When you have a 5-year-old bull and you say have 70 of them that you're holding to be 5 years old, which is a quarter of the cow's life, which is specified in the bill. First off, I want to say that a productive cow, in my opinion, is their lifespan's about 13, 14 years old. Very seldom do you have them go past 15. because as they get older, their teeth grind down and they can't sustain themselves during a
Right.
drought or short feed. But anyway, and the question you asked me again?
So this prohibits slaughtering an animal, whether it be a fish, cow, chicken, until
a
it reaches
quarter.
a quarter of its life. And then, just getting into fish, like there's fish that live 50 years.
Yeah, like how do you know how old the fish is?
Yeah.
And
But you gotta cut them in half and count them. No.
Yeah.
sorry.
But back to my point, if you got
Yeah.
50 head of bulls out here in the pasture, they're rowdy, they're rambunctious, they
Yeah.
hit each other, they
Yeah.
fight all the time. You're gonna have, for the safety of that animal, you need to castrate them
Yeah.
because it makes them more docile. And they're easier to handle, they don't tear up equipment, they don't hurt cowboys or cowgirls.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's just much easier on the animal and the ranch itself. You can't carry those animals over for that long anyway, because it's not economically feasible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking about, because of the drought in 1 year, if you have, and because you had to feed for an entire year, if you had to keep that bull around until he's 5 years old, you got to feed him for 5. Could you imagine the price that they would have to ask for that finished product at the grocery store?
Low quality, by the way.
Yes, yeah, to recuperate those funds that they lost during that holdover time period. It would be astronomical.
Yeah.
We're talking what you might be paying 4 pounds for at the grocery store, you'd be paying at least 4 times that.
Wow.
So 12 pounds, $12 a pound for hamburger. How would that?
Oh, well, we also learned when this first came up from Farm Bureau, from Sean Martini was explaining to me that there's a lot of beef that gets shipped from Colorado that gets shipped overseas, and that it would violate, it would take Colorado completely out of that because it
Mhm.
violates UN treaty laws, international
30
laws.
months, 30 months
30
is the
months,
cutoff.
and that's your
Yeah.
cutoff.
Yeah.
And there's lots of reasons for that, and it's not just economical or any of that, but its impact on environment, all of the things. 30 months is it.
Mhm.
And
And
so
that's a $1 billion industry, just
for Colorado.
just for Colorado to
Yeah.
get it out of here. And just livestock production itself is a $5 billion industry to the state of Colorado,
Wow.
which is number 2 economic driver of Colorado.
And it's not, you're not, and forgive the pun, but you're not raising livestock, any livestock, cattle or anything else in Colorado. You're not raising it in silos. There's other ag producers that benefit, and it all works together.
It'll put us
There-
out of the market. I mean,
It would finish Colorado.
it would. And this would kind of segment into the next one I
Yep.
would like to talk about.
Yeah.
We had our ag roundtable, and this, I'm going to pull up my
Tell them what
notes
their
here.
ag roundtable is.
Yes,
First, because this
so
is
it's-
very interesting. I wanted to hear more from
So
you
the
on this.
future of ag in Colorado, we had several, I don't know what you call them. So
They're all
Mayor,
heavy hitters. They're all
all big.
decision makers.
Yeah.
They're all big time. Yeah.
yeah, so the stock show is at risk of not being able to have the beef show. The Hereford show pulled out, went to Oklahoma.
Yep.
The Angus show is talking about it. We want to keep that stock show here. But if this pause initiative passes, it won't matter, because there won't be a stock show, there won't be a state fair, there won't be a county fair. If this pause initiative, that's how dire this is. And but anyway, so a bunch of us heavy hitters, Mayor Hancock and his chief of staff, Alan Salazar, Dr. Tony Frank from CSU, he was there, and the president and CSO of the National Western, Paul Andrews, he was
Okay.
there. Kate Greenberg, Secretary of Ag, 5 other commissioners from around the state were there. John Eckert, chair of the Western Stock Show Association,
Mhm.
senior policy director from Keystone Ernest House, he
Okay.
was there. And of course, Chad Vorthman, executive VP for CFB, Colorado Farm Bureau. Sean Martini was there also from Farm Bureau. and Terry Frankhauser, and many more. There were 30 individuals that were present there, all heavy hitters.
Right.
And we all got together to figure out how we could circumvent this suburban, urban, rural America, rural Colorado divide.
What I'm going to do is we have 2 minutes left on the show.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
we're going to continue this discussion. So for anybody listening, we will put this on YouTube because we're going to talk some more about this.
I could talk to Tony all day.
Yeah,
So,
but let's do that. Let's
Yeah,
close the
let's
show
do that.
and then we'll continue before we.
So,
get into it.
so as we go, as we sign off, Chad Borthman, I know you're listening right now. So remember the good old days when former Representative and now Senator Danielson was a friend of Colorado Farm Bureau. Just wanted to remind you of those good old days when she was all about ag, apparently. Join us next week when I ask a lot of overly complicated questions, and we'll see how it goes for Brian McCain when he explains to his wife that he's now buying a ranch down in Los Animas County. We'll see you guys next week.
Everybody understands, everybody that was around the table understands how important ag is. We need to get that message out to the state, at the state level. To the governor needs to understand, and I want Kate Greenberg to carry our concerns back to the governor and say, listen, this is what it's going to do to Colorado.
Yeah.
The trickle down effect from it's not just about beef, it's not about pork or anything else, but the trickle down effect, if that goes away, think of your big R's and your Tractor Supplies and Walmart and Kmart and everybody else that's involved. Higher prices at the counter for your beef products, for your chicken, your pork, everything else.
Well, shoot, think of what they're doing now with this transportation, trying to generate revenue with that. That's going to kill that.
Yes.
Because who's paying these taxes, these fees or fines? It's the truck drivers, it's the industry coming in and shipping this in and out. And if ag goes away, that's not only killing that economic part of the state, but also the transportation side of the state as well.
Right.
So,
Well, and we delved into that some.
Okay.
So the being the chair of the Animal, Wildlife and Rural Affairs Committee for CCI, we asked if we couldn't get Kate Greenberg to do a monthly update, and we'll give her an update on where we're at, what's going on in the ag community. She can tell us what's going on at the state level. And this is.
How did she respond to that? Because I'll tell you, I had coffee with her. She was down last weekend and we visited and had a really, really great visit. And I really feel like her heart is with them. And she just, and she's happy to have those conversations and to do anything as far as that goes.
She wants to help. I really do believe that.
I believe that too.
And the magnitude and the scope of what she's trying to address right now with the attack on the assault on agriculture is just overwhelming. I would hate to be in her shoes. I mean, you couldn't please anybody.
No.
Much as a commissioner with the COVID pandemic, you can't please anybody.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he needs to understand, the governor needs to understand how prudent it is to keep agriculture alive and well. It's our heritage. That's what Colorado was a cattle state. And we need to keep that alive and well because it reciprocates by providing for the state and for Denver, because then we could have this National Western Stock Show. I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about the monthly meetings, update meetings with Kate Greenberg and the ag committee there at CCI. And then we're talking about this roundtable, and what happened was this roundtable kind of spurred off of what we were doing with Kate Greenberg and John Swartout did a fantastic job of securing the location, the venue, and putting the actors together. And he's really good at that. And he was our moderator that day, and we all came together to see how we could bridge that gap between suburban and rural Colorado. Let's get everybody on the same page so that we can need to do a better job of educating the people that live in the city. They don't understand what we have to do. Even these two individuals that I believe that initiated this initiative 16. I think their heart's in the right place, you know, no sexual contact with the animal. Okay, I get that, but
But let me say, and I know what you're saying, but at the same time, they could pull that ballot measure at any time.
they could,
Instead of doing that, they're out collecting signatures.
right?
And so I'm going to have a really hard time forgiving them for that. As soon as they have the response and they've heard all those things, they're still pushing and fighting for it when it's going to be this devastating.
And
And
what's
it's-
concerning is it only takes 124,000 signatures.
And from
because
anywhere.
it's
Yeah. They can get the
statutory, they
signatures.
can get it right there in Boulder.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get so disgusted when I start talking about this because none of it makes sense.
It does.
And it's just because these individuals, they don't understand. If,
I'm really curious about what Denver Mayor Hancock had to, what his response was and how that went, that conversation with him.
he supports ag.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And he supports the National Western.
That's a huge deal because
oh,
the
yeah.
National Western Stock Show is a huge, huge deal for Colorado, but really so much more for Denver.
Even for the world. I mean, when you stop and think about it, people from all over the world come to see that it's iconic. I mean, I've been participating there at the stock show, showing calves and 4-H and FFA, and then later on showing horses, both performance and halter, and then to ride bulls and bareback horses there as a young man. And
it's a big deal.
It is, and what an honor it was to participate there. And then later on, because I got involved with the Colorado Farm Bureau, they allowed me to be the sponsor for the heifer wrangle, and that's a huge thing. I enjoyed. In fact, I gave three heifers away, and one heifer won the state fair because of that. So I was pretty pleased with that. But yeah, I tried to assure Mr. Andrews that, hey, my heart's there.
Yeah.
Every commissioner here, his heart's there. And it was really neat to listen to different people's stories around the.
And as far as Andrews goes, how did everybody got along, it sounds like, for this? So was that a one and done, or is this going to be?
It's going to continue.
Continue.
So the big message that we're working on right now is we're trying to figure out an event that would be an educational event, but also a pro-agriculture day, and what that entails
In Denver?
yes,
Yeah.
at the stock show. And we're trying to spitball how that's going to play out. And I had a little conversation with Terry Frankhauser, and I told him I'd be more than happy to bring some beef. And he says, you wouldn't have to do that. We could get sponsors to do that.
By the way,
But I want some skin in the game.
yeah. By the way, Terry Frankhauser is he's the Colorado Cattlemen's Association director.
Yeah, executive
so-
VP.
Yeah. So he's on that. Okay. There's another bill we have to talk about, and I know it's not really affects you as much, but we absolutely have to have a conversation about this debacle of a piece of legislation. So with the ballot with pause, that's a voter thing. This is a legislative piece. I don't have anything nice to say. So somebody else should talk about the ag worker bill.
Yeah.
So there's a bill.
I'm looking at Brian saying somebody
yeah.
else needs to say something.
No,
because
no,
I'm not
and we've talked it many
about
times. And what's the exact title of it? The
It's-
Ag labor bill.
ag labor bill.
The ag labor bill.
So
Yeah.
basically, this bill
Ag
was
worker rights. There it is.
it was introduced, and going back to, I don't think there's bad intentions behind it. And what it's saying, it's like, we're going to set all these new rules and regulations on the ag industry because there has been a history of, well, they've straight up said it, racism, mistreatment, social injustice. That's the word that we're using right now in the ag industry. And the sponsor of the bill and the supporters of the bill, they're just not willing to have a discussion at all.
No, they say they are. They say they're going to have discussions, but from all of our members
Yes.
and the people that we deal with, that's not what we're hearing.
They're very one-sided discussions.
Yes. Yeah.
And basically what this bill would do, and we have members that are on both sides of this, you know, the big one is the collective bargaining, unionizing the ag workers, right? Some people are like, you know, whatever, that can happen. Okay. Other people are like, no, we don't like unions. We treat our people well, if not better. We don't need unions. And okay, but there's some other stuff in it that's problematic to the ag producers, correct?
Yes, and I've got a couple of them written down here. There's many things wrong with this bill,
Yes.
and I can't name them all, but
Basically everything.
yes.
Yeah.
The two main things that stand out to me right now, they talk about the range workers.
Mhm.
So up there in the mountains on BLM, and to acquire those and to run sheep, a lot of sheep producers have individuals that live in sheep camps,
Yes.
just little trailers with cabs on them, look like a Casanova wagon.
Yeah.
And they live in there and they protect those sheep and move them around so that they don't overgraze. And many times there's so I'm gonna have to go here.
Okay,
Yeah.
do it.
So there's housing requirements
Yes.
that have to be dealt with. When range workers they're gonna be out of compliance because they usually have two workers for safety reasons living in one sheep camp.
Mhm.
And one guy will go out, he'll do it for a 4-hour stint. He'll come in, take a nap. The other guy goes out for 4 hours or 8 hours or however they got it worked out. But during a pandemic, CDC requires that you can't have one, there can only be one in that little bitty
Yeah.
trailer at one time. So they would be out of compliance with that.
Right.
But the USDA regs say that there has to be two people there for the safety.
It's a safety issue.
So the rules and regs aren't even jiving. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way that the rancher, the sheep, you know, the guy that owns the sheep, there's no way he can be in compliance. He's going to be out of compliance with either CDC, the USDA, and to get that lease, he has to comply by the USDA regs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
it's just
so
a
we add this
cluster.
layer of housing to this,
Yes.
with,
Which, by the way, for immigrant workers, the ag producers are required to provide housing.
right?
Now, in the case of, say, sheep herders, there is an exemption for it because of this, because that's how it's a different scenario. But going back to how you're out of compliance no matter what you do, it's kind of like I used to own a business. And I remember the fire department said, no, your front door has to swing out.
Yeah.
And then regional said, no, your front door has to swing in. And I'm like, what do I do? And the fire department was like, well, you know, we're the ones that's going to be approving it. That's more important. So make it swing out. And then you're out of compliance with regional. And then you get fined by regional and you make it swing in. And then when you see the fire department coming every year for the inspection, you make the door swing out for a day. You know, it's insane. It's the same thing.
It's ridiculous.
It's terrible. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about was the whistleblower aspect of this whole thing.
Yes.
Thank you, because we
Yes.
haven't really dove into
Yeah.
that on the show yet, and it's insanity. So yeah, talk about that.
So if an individual, say he wants that lease,
Uh-huh.
and the individual down the road that lives on the neighboring ranch, he wants that BLM lease, he could actually call that in as and be a tattletale if he thought there was something going on, even if there wasn't something going on, and it goes straight to district court.
You're
Mhm.
right.
And so normally it would go to the Department of Labor, Colorado Department of Labor,
Yeah.
and then they would send somebody out to investigate. And
So I wanted to, because this is so insane to me. I don't think most people are going to understand it. So this is, and stop me when I'm wrong. So if there's the whistleblower, anyone can say at any time, if I drive by under this bill and see something that I think is out of compliance, I can blow the whistle, quote unquote, blow the whistle on it. And there's no other way. It goes straight to district court. There's no like investigation ahead of time. There's no like you have to turn in pictures or you don't even work there. You were driving by. And this is why this is scary to me, is because I remember, and we made a joke out of it. But I remember a few years ago, somebody called animal control on somebody because they were driving through the Greenhorn Valley and they saw all of these dogs who were obviously underfed, and it was just this horrible situation.
I know the
And it
story.
turns
They were
out
goats.
they were goats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other thing is, I could be like, I'm kind of jealous of Tony, or,
Yes.
I'm mad at him. I'm just going to make this phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and then here we go again. These legislators that have introduced this bill, although I'm sure they're well-meaning,
Yeah.
they don't understand. So you got somebody driving up the road, and this happened just not long ago. And a friend of mine called me and said, somebody picked up one of my guard dogs and hauled it off. The guard dogs are there to protect the sheep, and they thought that somebody had dumped this dog off.
Yeah.
Well-meaning person,
Yeah.
for this poor dog out there all by himself. But he had a place where he had food and water and, shelter. And he was doing his job. That's what
That's
Yeah,
what that
yeah,
dog was
that's it.
doing.
But a
Yes.
well-meaning person could drive by there and see, well, that dog's malnourished. And like you said, turn that individual in for the dog that is guarding the sheep or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
A lot of problems with it on
Yes.
multiple levels.
On multiple
And
levels.
going back to, good intentions, there is a saying, the path to where is generally paved with good
good
intentions.
intentions. Yeah.
Well, I think my other issue with that is, and I'm not, again, I'm a little more angry about it, but if that was genuinely, it would, like, I understand, okay, we want to make sure that ag workers are taken care of and that they have rights and all those
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
There's not an ag producer that we've talked to or that we know that feels differently. And let's say that they're just, they were just saying something, they're just trying to be whatever. The truth of the matter is that people aren't willing to do these jobs. Ag producers always have a hard time filling these jobs. And they know that they have to treat their folks very, very well, because there's like contracts and all of that. They could just go to some other ag producer and be treated better. Where's the logic?
Yeah, so, and I've worked at ranches in different places, farms, where they've had migrant workers. And if they were treated so badly, why did they come back every year?
Year
20
after
years?
year.
Yes.
Plus, it's illegal to treat them badly.
Oh,
yeah.
It's already illegal.
It already is
And
illegal.
the devil's advocate, they'll say, well, they're afraid and they don't know how to speak up and they don't know their rights. And that's why it's important to do the collective bargaining, so we can have somebody in there and teach them. That's the argument against it. But again, I'm sure it happens. I'm positive it happens in some areas. But from our area, I've never seen that. And the few times I have, they've gotten in trouble because it is already illegal to do that. And these producers go through a regiment of, spending money, providing housing, taking care. And the Department of Labor does check up on this. And they'll do random checks. People don't realize this, that immigration and labor, they do random checks. They could just pull up. And if you're out of compliance, you're done.
You're done.
It's not like they're hidden away and nobody comes and visits.
One other thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. Sorry, we're taking a lot of time, but.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like this conversation, and I'm getting more relaxed now, so I'm feeling like I can say these things. But the other thing I wanted to bring up was talking about the insecticides and the pesticides.
Yeah.
And
let's
the
do
whole
that.
reason that they ever started to do the hoeing and the weeding is, like, for instance, around lettuce and any of your shallow type tubulars like radishes and that sort of thing. You do that, you pull those weeds and you use a short hoe because you can get there closer and see where it's at.
Okay, let me pause you for just a second. So just if you don't know, there's provisions of this bill that literally say what size the handle on farming like tools can be. This is another one. You just want to go, who was taking the crazy pills? So go ahead.
And the reason that they wanted to cut back on the use of pesticides and insecticides because it's hard to wash a piece of celery off and get all of that
Right.
off. And I wash it thoroughly. I mean, you have to, and also your fruits. So you got peaches in the trees that you got to keep the bugs off. You got watermelons and cantaloupes. And if you don't use the pesticide and you do it by hand, you weed it by hand and you pick it by hand, and you can handle it more gentle, you're going to get a more premier product, right?
Right, exactly.
If you just go out there and spray it, lots of times there'll be a residue of that chemical left. So they're trying to, to provide a premier product,
Right.
and they're going to get penalized for it because they don't want them. They don't want them hoeing. They don't want them weeding in it.
Yeah.
And
It's like pick a side, pick something. Or when you were describing how you take care of cattle and sort of the husbandry of it, I was just sitting here thinking all of the science that goes into it, all the technology that goes into ag production, and that's completely out. Like it's not even a thought in the crafting this legislation or the ballots or whatever.
But we can ship cattle in from Brazil and Mexico and Argentina that are far less
Right.
the quality that we have right here. And the rules and
There's
regs
no
don't
rules there.
apply to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a double standard, and that bothers me a lot
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. That bothers me a lot. All right. So I think we're going to finish it off on there.
Oh, I
So,
have one more question.
oh, wait, yeah, go ahead.
This is a fun one though.
And you can cut and tape all this, I hope.
Oh, yeah. It's all.
We're
cut out,
running
cut
it.
stuff.
We're
Other than
running
the
it.
live part, then that's already out there, but everything else will cut. A weird story from the county, like, because I go on these kicks every now and then, like the ghost stories or
It's
UFOs.
fun.
What's
Yes.
the weird thing, or an
A
urban legend from the area?
We do have UFOs. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but a gentleman by the name of Tommy Miller,
Mhm.
however it has happened, but right there where where 350 crosses the Purgatory River, and that's his place, and not 150 yards from where that happens. He's had, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 different cattle that have been mutilated right there. in the
Okay, wait,
bottom.
back up. Okay, so this is, how far is this from where we're sitting right now?
15 miles.
15 miles. And there's a riverbed.
Yeah, the Purgatory River runs
Right.
under the 350, the height.
Okay,
There's a bridge.
and
So
there's a bridge, and he's got cattle there, and
Yeah,
he's had his cattle mutilated there.
yeah, and this has been reoccurring. It happens, randomly, but it's been reoccurring since probably the 80s. And they did a national story on him way back in the day. So that's one of them. And but I'll tell you one that I don't want you to put out there.
I'll pause it.
Let's pause it. Let's pause it.
Pause it.
Okay,
You wanna hear
Say
this?
say goodbye.
So
This is it.
this is it. So if you want to hear this story directly from Commissioner Tony Haas, it's going to be a good one, I can tell. If you want to hear this story from him, you're going to have to come and meet him, shake his hand, have coffee with him, or have some conversation with him, and then you'll get that. Thanks so much for joining us and staying over for the YouTube side of this. Great conversations. We love it. We love the beautiful walking, Ryan. Thank you so much for
Thanks
just
for
having
having me.
us
Thanks for
and
having
doing
me.
this. So
All right.